This lecture is in regards to the labor market. Knowing about it and paying attention may have a real impact on your career. So what is the labor market? Well, it is literally the market in which workers compete for jobs and employers compete for workers. Labor market information, or you may have heard it referred to as LMI, is information that relates to the labor market. Makes sense, right? It might be data or employment statistics and wages. Why would you need to know this? Well, you may have to research wages in your field in order to answer the potential interview question. What is your salary expectation? Standards and qualifications needed to work in the field. You may need to explore these in the future. You may need further education or certification, depending on which direction you go with your career. For instance, there are often extra certifications required if you're interested in becoming a supervisor, say a surface mine supervisor. Or sometimes companies will require you to complete in-house modules and testing for insurance purposes. It could also be as simple as job openings, company information, or learning about working conditions in the field. You can research and find out all kinds of information, like what are the highest paying occupations? What geographic region have the brightest employment prospects? Should I consider moving? What jobs are employers having difficulty filling? What types of training and education do employers require of prospective employees? What occupations are projected to grow the fastest? And opposite of that, which ones are declining? What shapes the labor market? It's a variety of things. For instance, technology. Global News on March 26, 2018 reported half of the Canadian jobs will be impacted by automation in the next 10 years. How might technology affect or change your industry? What skills will you need? I'm going to share a personal story that I think highlights the importance of following the labor market, knowing what's happening out there. So this is really a combination of technology and social changes that had a significant impact on the paper industry. With a large number of people transitioning from buying hard copies of newspapers and magazines, the sale of paper fell. My husband happened to work for a recycling paper plant for almost 21 years before his plant closed their doors. I was working as an employment counselor at the time and definitely paying attention to the labor market, what was happening, listening to the news. Rumors had been flying about the mill for a few years, but management was starting to report the trends of declining sales as well. I asked my husband, "What's your plan B? What do you plan on doing if the plant closes?" There would be high competition for available jobs in his field, as his co-workers would also be searching for the same type of work. I asked about retraining, and we looked into getting his Red Seal certification and what that would take. He decided that that would be his best option. He was able to study and write the exam and pass. We then updated his cover letter and resume, and he started applying to positions. He had a number of interviews with a number of different companies, including Ontario Power Generation. That started with testing and then continued to the interview stage. He received a call while he was off during March break that the plant had actually closed. He thankfully was already in the process. Many of his coworkers really didn't think it would happen. They weren't paying attention to labor market information, and even 2 years later, were still looking for work. Demographics. Where are the majority of jobs in your field? Will you need to relocate? What will that look like for you? Social factors. Society is continuously changing. One significant difference is the growing popularity of social media. There have been many changes because of this. How companies market themselves, what approach they take. There's also political or economical factors. Politically, you need to know what are the environmental platforms of the current government if you are in an environmental field. There is an election coming up. How might the outcome affect your industry? As far as economic goes, just about everything that has to do with economics affects the labor market. For example, the demand for goods and services, the size of our population, immigration, even the minimum wage rate. Occupation or industry structure is an example. Maybe a company laying off staff, adding more workload to the staff that they have kept on. Or a company is streamlining processes, trying to save money, and that causes them to eliminate positions. Education and training. A lot of careers now need specialized education or training. The Ontario government recently made some significant changes. So, did you hear that news in January? Now, they're focusing directly on low-income families for OSAP. They've reduced the family income threshold, so it'll be harder to be eligible now. They also removed the interest-free 6-month grace period for loan repayment. All of these changes may very well affect accessibility for some to attend post-secondary. LMI and you. What effects could the labor market have on you? It could affect your plans for education, where you choose to live, your prospects of finding work, or once you've settled down and established a family, your family's prospect of finding work. Will they need to move away? You can find a lot of this information on the National Occupational Classification, which is a Canadian website, federal. You may have also heard it referred to as NOC. Often job postings will have a 4-digit number, and that's the National Occupational Classification number. You can also hear about labor market information in the news. Some of the other things you might want to consider: how many workers are already in this field? How many workers will be needed in the future? How will technology change the industry? Is this occupation mobile across the country? From which training programs do employers prefer to hire? How will consumer behavior affect opportunities? What public policies will impinge on this career? All valuable things to think about. Here are some references. If you wanted to have a look at that Global News article that I was talking about, there's some really interesting information in it. And to get to the National Occupation Classification System, you can click on this link.